Hi guys, so I promised I'd post a follow-up video after I got my Tavor 7 back from IWI to report back on what was wrong with it. It came back recently, but I wanted a chance to take it out to the range first and make sure it was functioning normally before reporting back. If you watched my previous video, then you'll already know what kinds of problems I was having, but if you haven't watched that video, I'll post a link in the description so you can watch that one. Now, the most important thing I have to say is that it turned out there wasn't anything wrong with my T7, but there is a quirk to the gun that IWI doesn't really mention anywhere and can easily mislead someone to think that there's something amiss. It's not a really big problem, but I figured it's best if I clarify it and try to spread the word so that other people don't run into the same confusion I had. In addition to this one issue, I'll mention a few other quirks I found. None of them are major problems, but again, it's good to know these things so that you have a nice happy life with your Tavor 7. Okay, so the main issue is this charging handle problem I had. If you recall, in my first video, I had a hell of a time trying to rack the charging handle after the gun had been dry fired. The gun has a stout recoil spring to begin with, but it seemed impossible to charge the action after the hammer had been released. Well, as it turns out, IWI in Israel incorporated a new feature in the Tavor 7 that the previous SAR 556 didn't have. If you dry fire the gun, and then put it on safe, the safety actually tries to prevent you from cycling the handle. To cycle it normally, you have to put the safety back on fire. IWI USA told me this was a decision made by parent company IWI in Israel, and frankly, I'm not sure what the real benefit is. Again, I'm no gun expert, and this is just my humble, regular guy opinion, but I just think it's kind of unnecessary. I'm not going to say I know better than the staff at IWI in Israel. I'm sure they have some highly qualified former military people on their staff. Me, on the other hand, the closest thing I'll ever get to a hostage situation is when one of my friends forgets to return my John Wick Blu-ray when they're supposed to. Other people, though, have told me they think it's a weird feature too, so I'll leave you guys to make up your own opinions. It's especially weird when you consider the Tavor SAR didn't have this feature. I mean, the Tavor SAR 556. It takes about the same amount of force to rack the handle on an SAR whether the safety is on or off. On other guns I have, this is a non-issue as well. This FS2K, for example. The charging handle works the same regardless of what position the safety is on. So, right now, take it off safety, dry fire, put it back on safe, charging handle works just fine. You put it off safe, charging handle works the same. Now, on an AR, if the hammer is in fired position, it's designed so that you can't even put the safety back on safe without racking the charging handle first, so you can't get confused by it. Dry fire. Note that the safety is currently on fire. If you try to put it on safe, it won't even let you. You have to rack the charging handle, and then you can put it back on safe. No confusion there. One reason why I find this feature is very weird is from the standpoint of malfunction clearance. If you fire the gun and it fails to go boom, your basic remedial action involves racking the action to try and eject a possible bad cartridge. On most guns, the safety position makes no real difference, so you're doing this, or it has something obvious to tip you off that you need to actuate the safety, like for example an AK, where the safety would block the charging handle anyway. The T7 does not make it obvious. So in the heat of the moment, and you put the safety on, either on purpose or inadvertently, you could find yourself trying to rack the action and not be able to. And then you end up throwing the rifle away and resorting to just verbally abusing your target instead. So yeah, for example, you're in the middle of a firefight. You shoot the gun. Gun goes click. No go boom. If you accidentally put the safety back on, or you intentionally put the safety back on because you're trying to be safe, then you go for the charging handle and nothing happens. If you don't know about this feature, you could be yanking on that charging handle and not getting anywhere. Now, it's easy enough to switch the safety off and then rack the action, but you have to remember to do that, assuming that you know you have to do it. And that's kind of my biggest problem with this feature. I've read the manual several times and can't find this feature mentioned anywhere. Even the customer service rep that emailed me back when I first told IWI about this problem I seem to be having didn't mention this feature as a possible explanation for the problem I was having. If he had told me about this feature instead of just giving me an answer that the gun is probably fine, I wouldn't have been concerned enough to want to ship the gun back to them. It was only when my rifle arrived back at IWI and Jeremy Gresham, the sales manager, contacted me that he explained what was really going on. That it was just a feature of the rifle. Now, I mentioned other quirks to the T7. Another quirk that you really need to know is with the disassembly procedure in the manual. If you read the procedure for removing the recoil assembly, you'll see it says that a prerequisite to doing so is to perform the unloading and safety check. Well, the last step to that procedure, and I quote, is to pull the trigger, dry fire. This will place the hammer in the fired position for storage. Then it asks you to move the safety lever to the safe position. Your rifle is now ready for storage. Well, if you follow that procedure as the manual specifies, then try to remove the recoil mechanism, you'll actually run into a problem because the fired hammer is now snagging the recoil mechanism. Let me demonstrate. Okay. Dry fire, put the safety back in safe. And then, to remove the recoil mechanism, you're supposed to pop out this pin. And then when you pop out that pin, that's when you can grab the recoil mechanism. Well, as you can see, it's snagged by the hammer, and you can't remove it. The proper procedure is to actually leave the hammer cocked, then remove the recoil mechanism. If you're not a firearms expert and or you're new to the T7, you won't spot this issue, and it'll just confuse you like it did to me. put this misleading info from the manual together with the weird feature that's not mentioned about the safety mechanism, and I think you can see how this would be pretty confusing to the uninitiated. That storage procedure also can potentially cause issues when you think about it. Imagine this scenario. You follow the procedure for storage, and you put the gun in your safe with the hammer fired and the safety on, just like the manual recommends. One dark night, something goes bump, you go and investigate, and there's Brad Pitt out there fending off zombies with a broken chair leg. OMG, I have to help! So you go to your gun safe, you grab your Tavor 7, in all the excitement, you forget to put the safety off, and you start wailing on the charging handle, and you're not getting anywhere. There you go. Your Tavor 7 just caused Brad Pitt's death. I noticed some other little issues with the manual. One is that the illustration for the foregrip removal procedure shows the pistol grip still in place. But you actually have to remove that first because the tab on the pistol grip helps keep the foregrip in place. Removing the hand grip is mentioned as a requirement to removing the foregrip, but small print is easy to miss in favor of the large illustration. Speaking of the hand grip, the manual also says to use a 6mm Allen key, which doesn't fit. It's actually a 5mm. It also tells you for some weird reason that removing the recoil mechanism is a prerequisite to removing the hand grip, which makes no sense, since the hand grip is just held on by that one screw and doesn't interact with the recoil mechanism. Now these two other issues are small things, but it kind of just goes to show that the manual could have used some more polishing to avoid confusing new owners. Since I'm talking about this gun's quirks, I might as well point out a couple more that prospective buyers might want to know. First, if you're used to the Tavor SAR's Mag Release, that's just ahead of the mag well, the 7 will take some getting used to, since the 7 uses an AR style release. This is just a button you actuate with your index finger. In theory, the new system is faster, since you can hit the mag release with your trigger finger, have the old mag drop free, and then have your offhand immediately inserting a new magazine. With the old system, you had to take your offhand, hit the mag release, which meant that it wasn't immediately free to grab another magazine to replace it. X95 owners, on the other hand, will adapt readily because the X95 already adopted the AR style mag release. Second little quirk with the Tavor 7 is that IWI got rid of the built-in sling swivel mount at the front of the rifle that was on the Tavor SAR 5.56 and the X95. If you prefer a 2-point sling like me, such as this VTAC that I have here, one of the first purchases you should get is an M-LOK swivel mount like this one to install on the foregrip. Third, and I personally quite dislike this change, is the lack of backup iron sights on the T7. Both the SAR and X95 have these nifty backup sights built into the top rail. On the T7, they're gone. It's just a rail. Yes, you could attach some backup iron sights on the top rail, but the gun doesn't ship with any. So that's an added expense, plus there's the extra issue of using space on your top rail for them. On the old Tavors, they were there all the time, which is kind of the point of backup sights. They're there all the time in case of emergency. Overall though, after having shot my T7 some more, I can say it's a really great gun. It hasn't had any malfunctions and seems more than accurate for my limited skills. I'm sure I'll love it even more with extended use and would recommend it to anyone looking for a 7.62 bullpup or just looking for a 7.62 battle rifle in general. I hope this video helps you out though to know some of the quirks of this particular firearm. None of them are huge issues, and really it shouldn't keep you from buying it. You just have to be aware of them so you don't run into any trouble. Before I wrap up, I'd like to thank IWI USA for checking out my gun and clearing up the issues I was having. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.